Madrid, they can't win big games. I've said it. They couldn't beat PSG. They couldn't beat Atletico. They couldn't beat Liverpool. There's this main issue with Real. Yes, they defeated Barca, but against these other teams, they can't compete. They can't. For me, my favorite time this season, you want to say, as a Madrid fan, I think they performed at their best was the Club World Cup. I think they looked more structured. They were playing better. They were playing exactly how I thought they would actually play under Xabi Alonso. And then coming to the new season, the La Liga, gone. He just never really went back to that style, that play style, that technical whatever. And I think needs to revert back to that. I think they looked way better performing wise. Don't get me wrong, they 100% playing better than last season. But I think in the Club World Cup they were just more structured, more they were playing better. They were playing together. And then this is just another, whatever. So a huge thing. Here we were gonna go to their game against Liverpool. You see the starting 11. I'm just not a fan. I am not a fan of the starting 11. The back line, sure, that's fine. I like how the back line is. Chouameni, that anchor. And this is where it starts more getting more complicated. So here you have four options in right wing. You have Brahim, you have Brahim Franco. If you want to say Rodrygo, you can, but he doesn't want to play there. And you have Kamavinga has been playing more on the right side lately, and then you have Arda. Those are technically your only options on the right side. And then you go back here and you have Mbappe and Vini, who's that dual ship that hasn't really stand out. I think they were playing better than last season together, but still there's just like that gap. And then you have Arda and Bellingham. But for me, I think Bellingham's performing better than Arda since they've been playing together. That's what I think really. And then the one key issue I've always said was they don't have a true nine. I've said it. They don't have a number nine. Mbappe is not that player to to get there. He for me he's more a player that's out of the box and tries to create a chance from there. But he's not gonna sit in the front line of the box and then be that proper number nine that stays and sees the cross, goes tries to get the goal. Has he done that? Sure, of course. But 9 times out of 10, you see him playing more towards. I mean, he has a front like this side area here, and you have no one in the middle. And one thing I've always said was Madrid can't score a set piece. They can't score from across. They don't even make chances for those because there's no one ever in the box. That Liverpool game, literally shown it in games beforehand. So my solution, if I was Xavi Alonso, is go back to the Club World Cup era. Go back to that formation. Go back to that tactical making that you have. And I think this is probably the best solution there. Um, First thing is people are like, "Where's Vinny?" Because I see it all over online. And the glaze for Vinny, yes, but he's nowhere near his level that he was 2 years ago. Nowhere. So I hate that agenda of he's favoring Mbappe for Vinny. Of course he is. I'm gonna favor the better player. Has Vinny been that superstar player for Madrid? Of course. But if we're talking about now, he's another for me. He's another Franco. Has he had good games this season? Sure. There's a couple of good games he's had this season. But end of the day, structure and there's a what you need. So go back to the Club World Cup formation. Chouameni was like that anchor third center back type of thing, which for me worked really well. You need that anchor. And I see people saying drop Chouameni, put in a Kamavinga, put in whatever, and I'm like, it's not gonna work like that because who's gonna do Chouameni's job? Fede? Arda, Bellingham? No, none of them are gonna do Chouameni's job and drop back and be that holding anchor back in the team. And then the wing backs, I think Trent would excel as a wing back, and he looked pretty decent in the Club World Cup. And then Chouameni, and then Carlos just goes back to that four in the back, regular, how people play. And I'm like, just why go back? So him and Carreras has been standout. Frank Garcia had a good Club World Cup, but obviously you're gonna put the player you spent 50 million on. So Carreras and Trent as the wing backs. And this is where I like this 4-star cross whatever. Chouameni in the back, that false third center back, that anchor, that DM. Then you have Arda. I think Arda should be in the midfield, and then you have Fede, who's that versatile player that Trent can play with too, and then also drop back also to help out Hoyson or whatever. I think that'll be well instead of dropping because usually you will see a midfield of Bellingham, Goulet, and Chouameni because Fed has been playing right back for Carvajal. Trent is gonna come back soon. Carvajal's probably gonna be out for a little bit, but are you gonna drop Fed, your captain, or are you gonna drop Chouameni, or are you gonna drop Arda, Bellingham? No, you gotta work around it. You put yourself in the situation, so you gotta use what you have. So I think this 4-star cross, whatever, midfield um, would work well. In the Club World Cup they worked well. Bellingham was out, of course, but I don't know. He was playing. Um, I don't know. I think Arda will be better if he drops back and be that creative midfielder, and Bellingham has, I don't want to say false nine, just like that, the more attacking midfielder that he is and how he was back in 2023. But he can also be, him and Arda can swap spots too. I can see Arda be that 10 and then Bellingham be that, they can swap in and out, which is fine. And then this is where people are going to get all controversial, but dropping Vinny. If not drop Vinny, then Mbappe, but you're not going to do that. You're not going to drop your best player. That's just not going to happen. So one thing Madrid's struggling is getting people in the box, not creating chances, crosses. Garcia was always there. He's always been that in the Club World Cup. Even Garcia, you can put Hendrick. I don't care. One of your number 9s, and then you're gonna have to drop a right winger. Obviously, so Franco's not gonna start right. Sure, there'll be games that you can intertwine. Yeah, whatever. That's fine. But like for the games against Liverpool, against City, against Barca, against PSG, this is how it should be. Gonzalo, I feel like if he played more minutes than he has, he's played 90 minutes this season so far. If he's played more, I guarantee you he'd probably have 5 goals to his name, whatever, something like that. And Madrid will be playing better. Because even Vinny and Mbappe, you're too focused on the outer box, and then you have no one in the middle. And then Bellingham, when he came in against Juve, he was in the middle of the box. Barcelona, middle of the box. Because Bellingham was just used to type of. That's what he was when he played in 23-24. Or 22-23, whatever. And then he scored 2. People were like tap-ins, but that's what Madrid need, is a 9 that sits in the box and that scores the goals. Then that just proved my point. So, and then this, I feel like adding another midfielder to this also benefits that having more in the box, or, something like that. I think it'll be miles better. Obviously, you don't drop Vinny, but there's controversy of him getting substituted and stuff like that. I think he should be substituted. If you're playing bad, you're gonna get subbed out. Um, sure, there's games where he didn't drop Arda or Mbappe or whatever, and people are mad saying favoritism. Well, obviously, there's gonna be at least one player that you're not gonna drop. One player out of your whole 11 that you're not gonna drop week in and week out, and it's gonna be your best player, and it's gonna be your front man, Mbappe. Who else are you gonna take out? Or, I mean, obviously, but like you're not gonna take him out and keep Vinny in. You're not gonna do that. So that whole dilemma, that the whole story of favoritism and stuff like that is just common sense. It's not. I don't think he has anything against Vinny, but if you're playing bad and not up to the standards, and I think he's just another Franco, gets to the final third and creates nothing. Sure, like I said, there's gonna be, but like 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna do something. He can do something. He did it against Juve, but next game he's not gonna do that. Maybe the next game he's not gonna do that. Maybe after, sure, but then after that he's not gonna do it. He's just I don't say unreliable, but just inconsistent. For me, Vinny and Franco are literally the same player. They're skillful, pacey, aggression, but when they get to the final third, they're not gonna create anything really. But I think this is the perfect setup Madrid should do. I like this right here. I like that with the wing backs. The cover, you have your 2 center backs, and then Chouameni that drops back, and then you have a proper number 9, and you have Mbappe on the left. I think that's the best lineup you can do as Real Madrid. Can you drop Mbappe for Garcia? Yeah, I think Vinny could do good. Or that Mbappe for Vinny? Yeah, I think Vinny can. I think he would perform better. But like I said, out of those 2, who are you gonna keep? You're not gonna drop Mbappe. He just scored 40, almost 50 goals for you last season. Obviously, you don't want to say goals don't matter, but when you're a team that's needing goals and the only person that's been doing that is Mbappe, you're not gonna drop him. And then another thing, Madrid has players just like they're versatile. You have a Camavinga, you have a Brahim Diaz, you have a Rodrygo, You have so many players off the bench that you can use: a Ceballos, a Carvajal, a Fran Garcia. If injuries don't matter, you have a Rudiger, you have an Endrick, a Vinny. Like it's such a versatile team with so much depth and so much good players that you can use. But that's a whole different thing. But I think this team will win you the Champions League if they play to their standards and how I believe that they should be. But that's what Xabi needs to do.